Hello, everyone. It is Tony time, and Tony season is upon us. The nominations are coming out very shortly. Here to talk with me about what plays are going to make the cut this year is my good friend David Buchanan. I'm Sam Eckmann, and David, let's jump into Best Play right off the bat, because out of all the Tony categories this season, this could be the most complicated to me. I just really hope there's like four ties for that final slot, because this has been I think I said something similar the first time we talked at the start of the season, but almost every single play I've walked out of this season, I've been like, oh, well, that's definitely getting nominated. Well, that's definitely getting nominated. So I've said that like 12 times. So right now I have Leopoldstadt in first place, which seems like the only one still that I feel truly secure about. And then I'm going up next with the three Pulitzer winners, Fat Ham, Cost of Living, In Between Riverside and Crazy. And I am not confident about it at all, but then I have Life of Pi occupying spot number 5. That leaves out a ton of great plays. So I like any way I put this lineup, and it's gone several ways, seems wrong, because I'm leaving out something truly amazing. Does that mirror your lineup?
Well, it's unfortunate because we're either going to be right together or very wrong together, because I have the same 5. It will be the first time. I do think it'll be the first time in Tony history we get 3 Pulitzer winners nominated in the same year. That's never happened before. We've had a few instances with 2. This would be the first time for those plays, Fat Ham, Between Riverside and Cost of Living. I agree. I have Life of Pi in my last slot. I do think there are many categories it can do really well. Certainly the design categories. I feel like that amount of support could push it over. But we've also seen many times in the past where, a play like Disgraced only gets in for best play and nowhere else. I feel like it could be the reverse.
Or the reverse.
Exactly. I feel like Life of Pi might be the reverse, where it does really well in the design categories, but doesn't get into best play. That's To Kill a Mockingbird. We had a similar situation.
To Kill a Mockingbird and Network are calling.
Yeah. So I do have it. I feel like that is the one that could drop out. And the other thing why I'm keeping it is I do not know which one I would put in place of it. Like, there are so many, as you're saying, there are so many possibilities that I feel like it's safer to put that versus, I feel like I'm looking at the list right now in our odds to see there's at least 5 other ones I could see easily getting in here. So I just don't know what to do. So what would you put in if you were going to drop your 5th, which I think was Life of Pi? What's like in 6th that's just like nipping at its heels?
Ain't No Mo. Yeah, easily for me. I think it was here's the thing about how the best play category is tricky, because the Tonys don't have a category for best script or best playwright, whatever you would want to call it, which I'll never stop harping on.
Yeah.
But the playwrights are nominated alongside producers for best play. And sometimes I know that there are people who really take that to heart and consider the writing of the piece really paramount when choosing their nominees or their winner here. And I can totally envision a scenario where Life of Pi gets into every single design category, which it will, especially because they made the puppet designers eligible for costumes.
Yeah.
It'll definitely get into all design categories. It could get into score along with the musicals. It can get into lead actor and director, and still miss best play. Because I think, to me, Life of Pi is a feat of Hiran's acting and the immense, impressive production more than it is the script. Whereas all these other plays we've mentioned that we have above it are really writerly pieces of work that say something unique or in a unique way, or profound, that have a very clear perspective from their author. And that's why I think Ain't No Mo is the one that I would put in instead. I think people really gravitated towards that script if you were able to see it, because unfortunately it didn't run very long.
Yeah.
But it just seems so of the moment. It made a huge impact also with the Save the Show campaign. So it had like a huge, like 2 weeks of dominating theater news. So it will definitely be remembered. Nominators, have all seen it because they're required to see it. So that's the one I'm hesitant. Like it's hard to bet against because Life of Pi is going to get a ton of Tony nominations. So
Yeah.
it's hard for me to take that out because it is such a complete production. But then it seems crazy that I don't have Ain't No Mo in there. And so I want to take something out to put it in.
Yeah.
And beyond that, there's a ton of plays. Like, and the other thing to note, because it's a playwright focused award in many nominators' minds, the critics sometimes just really don't matter here. Like,
Yeah.
I was really surprised, when like Goodnight Oscar got like kind of a critical thrashing from many people. And let me tell you, if this was the whole awards body, not just the nominators, but if it was all Tony voters, I guarantee you Goodnight Oscar would get a nomination. I would bet you $1,000 that it would. It is like when the critics, kind of poo-pooed like Elvis or Bohemian Rhapsody in the Oscar race, but the industry loved it. The industry is having a ball at this. It checks every box in terms of what you want for a Tony Award nominee. It gives you like inside the mind of a artist. It makes you feel like you got a piece of history. It has an impressively performance. It's a really tight, clean script. So even though that is further down, it has 100-1 odds right now. And it definitely has a shot to get in. And then Prima Facie is not just about Jodie Comer's performance. There are critics who are kind of sour on the script with them and with that, but I can't. Out of everything, I've seen almost everything. I have to still have to check off one that we'll get to in a moment, but out of everything this season, Prima Facie is probably the one where I felt the most visceral reaction from the entire audience around me, with people at the end in stunned silence, people openly weeping. You could just feel like the air had changed in the room. And I do think, I could see some nitpicks with the script, but it just overall is incredibly, incredibly powerful. And that's what makes this category so hard, and why I'm really hoping there are ties, because I'm not someone who wants to just like throw a Tony to everyone, but in this case we have had an absurdly strong season of plays. So no matter what, no matter how it shakes out, some like truly incredible work will probably get left off. And there's even like, I loved Peter Pan Goes Wrong is a whole lot of fun. And Thanksgiving Play is a whole lot of fun. And A Christmas Carol was one of my favorite shows of the season. But it just seems like such a competitive race that I don't know. I don't think they have a shot, even though they're really amazing. But I reserve the right to change predictions like up until the very end. So I will probably put Ain't No Mo back in at some point if I'm brave enough to call a To Kill a Mockingbird situation on Life of Pi.
And just another one that you didn't mention that might as well throw in too, because as of like yesterday, I don't think I have it getting any nominations, is The Collaboration, which in another season, could be a Best Play nominee, could get in 1 or 2 Best Actor nominees, like if the season wasn't the most insanely competitive in recent memory. So, that's one in another year I would definitely have in my top 5. I just don't have room for it right now.
Oh, it's so hard. And it's so awful. I want there to be like an 8-play lineup, which probably won't happen, but it would be wonderful if it does. We'll cross our fingers. Let's look at yet another crazy. This is a hard year to predict the Tonys. It is not like, oftentimes everything seems like everything's secured or everything but this one slot is secured, which is not the case here. Because Play Revival there's not really a weak link in the
No,
bunch, and this is
no.
to make it more difficult for myself, the one show I am missing is
Uh-huh.
The Sign in Sydney Brustein's Window, that I haven't caught. I don't think I will be able to catch it before nominations come out.
Yeah.
So that makes things difficult on a personal note. But I right now have The Piano Lesson, Top Dog, Underdog, A Doll's House, and Death of a Salesman getting in.
Yeah.
I can see literally any one of those falling out of the category. It suddenly feels like there's kind of no front runner to me. Does it feel that way to you?
Same, absolutely the same. You know what? I just made a switch yesterday. I took Sydney Brustein's Window out and I
Mm.
put Doll's House in, and I can't even believe that like I didn't have Doll's House in. Like, but I don't know. And the only thing I'll say about this too, so just for my lineup, I have who do I have out front? The Piano Lesson out front, Death of a Salesman, Top Dog, Underdog, which I really think people are underestimating in a lot of categories, and A Doll's House. The only thing I wanted to say too is you could get 100-1 odds on Ohio State Murders, which is in our last place in the prediction center and our odds.
Mm-hmm.
Audra McDonald is getting nominated, and that's the kind of show that I feel like the nominators, this small group of people, could absolutely love and absolutely nominate. And I think we have like a handful of people, 87 people out of everybody in our prediction
Wow.
center are predicting Ohio State Murders. It could get in. Like this is how competitive.
Adrian Kennedy is going to be on the ballot because it has
Exactly.
not,
It's never
and
been on
that's a
Broadway.
huge factor.
It
And
is.
it's already been mentioned by some other groups
Yeah.
ahead of the Tonys, which
Yeah.
some people were surprised about. But I just think, like, I've had Piano Lesson as like my default first place for a bit, but I feel like that's the one I'm considering taking out.
Wow.
Because I just don't feel like there's a front runner in this at
No, I
all. And I
agree.
feel
Totally.
like they all feel really equally weighted
Mm-hmm.
to me. Piano Lesson is the one I think that has made the most money. I believe they recouped their investment and was a huge hit financially. A Doll's House is also selling really well.
Yeah.
I feel like that maybe that's a factor, being a huge hit or not. I don't know, but I feel like there's just no way to kind of figure out which one would be ahead, and which, even picking a winner when the nominations are eventually unveiled, seems like a tall order to me.
Yeah.
I think this might be the closest
Yeah.
race, in terms of how the votes are split. I would love to know what the tallies were. I wish they would release those afterwards.
I do
You
feel
talked to
like, oh, sorry, go ahead, Sam.
No, go for it. Go for it.
I was going to say, I feel like talking about how they're equally weighted, I feel like Doll's House, even though it's currently running, I think Jessica Chastain is in the running to win Best Actress. I feel like that's the one that feels weakest to me, only because the concept is so starkly different from any Doll's House we've seen before. I feel like people love that. Jamie Lloyd has done tremendous work. He got in for Betrayal. Betrayal was similarly stripped down. He got in for Director. That was in for Revival. So it's certainly in the race. I think I have it, either in third or fourth place. But that one feels to me like it could, if one is going to drop out, that to me has some kind of potential weak spots. If you just don't kind of vibe with the aesthetic of this Doll's House, if you were expecting, an opulent period piece, not knowing what Jamie Lloyd is going to give you, that could be just a little hesitation I have with it.
Well, I think that's why it's hard, is because I have that hesitation with all of them.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I know people for each of these shows who are intense supporters and intense detractors from each of them. I know people who thought that version of A Doll's House was brilliant and made them look at the script differently and highlighted Nora differently. And then other people were like, this really kept me at arm's length and I couldn't get into it. And even like Death of a Salesman, people really loved that and really loved the performances, especially the two leads. And other people were like, it went to too weird of a place for me with the dream stuff, and I wanted more traditional. Or like even Piano Lessons. I know people who thought that was like too grand in a way. So I think That's why I can't decide.
Wow,
But so
yeah.
maybe Top Dog. I don't think Top Dog Underdog I've heard anyone say anything bad
True.
about. So maybe that is maybe that's the front runner just
Could be.
because of that. I don't know. Um it's too hard to figure out. You mentioned Jessica Chastain, so let's move on to lead actress in a play. Um I don't have her out front. I have Jodie Comer.
Yeah.
I felt like Jessica was out front until I saw Jodie Comer. But they both are definitely, I think, the two in it to win it. I have the two of them, Audra McDonald, and I have Rachel Brosnahan
Hmm.
uh, for the sign in Sydney Brewstein's window, just because I have a hard time. I have a hard time thinking that anyone will be able to choose one over the other of Laura Linney and Jessica Hecht.
Hmm.
They're two great actresses, both beloved by the community. The play is just the two of them. It's very equally weighted, summer of 1976. And I don't see how you go, oh, clearly this one is the one who gets in, because I do think Jodie, and Jessica Chastain and Audra McDonald feel pretty locked in to me.
Yep.
So I can't see people splitting up the co-stars. And Zoe Wanamaker I really loved, but just doesn't have quite as much material as the other women here. So I don't know how many votes she's going to get with that. Rachel has gotten great notices for Sydney Brewstein's window, and also is kind of riding a wave right now for Mrs.
Yeah.
Maisel with the final season. So I just kind of by default have her in the last slot. Who do you
I have
have?
the same. I have the same. I do have Jodie Comer out front. I do think Jessica has potential to win. She is having the moment right now too. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
she's winning unexpected SAG awards. She's just won the Oscar. She's going to get Emmy
Yep.
nominated in a couple months. She's having an incredible career moment, and the performances, out of this world, as is Jodie Comer's. I do have Rachel in fourth too, and here's why. I had that production in for revival. I did just switch it out for Doll's House recently. And the kind of trade-off I made is, okay, I'm going to drop it in revival, but I'm going to put Rachel in for all the reasons you said. The reviews are there. She's having a great moment. And I do think it's going to be very hard to choose between Linney and Jessica Hecht. I know Linney has many, many Tony nominations, so it's hard to not predict Laura Linney. But Jessica Hecht, there's almost no actress in theater that works harder or more than Jessica Hecht. Like, she's off Broadway, on Broadway. She does so many shows, all different genres. She's just beloved too. So I feel like it's too hard a choice. And when you have a strong alternative, right, like Rachel, that's why I'm predicting her.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we'll see a tie here, and we don't have to fret because we'll have four of the potential five. But those are my four, same as yours.
Well, maybe that could happen because if the voters are very secure on three,
Yep.
and then everyone's last choice is pretty evenly split, it doesn't have to be an exact tie. We should mention
Exactly.
these Tony ties. It's like within 10%. That's why we have so many with the nominees. So that there very well could be a tie for this category if people can't decide and things are pretty even. Because yeah, she creates in summer 1976. Jessica Hecht has this really fun like hippie character she's created, which is very different from her normal stuff. So she's definitely a valid choice. But I'm going with Rachel for this one. Um, let's move on to lead actor in a play.
Mm. Mm-mm-mm.
Oh, David. This one is just as big of a bloodbath
Yeah.
as Best Play is, I think, because I could easily come up with a 10-person
Yep.
nomination slate for people who genuinely deserve it. My lineup right now is one that will absolutely change. I have this is not final by any means, even though this is supposed to be a final prediction video. I have Sean Hayes, Goodnight Oscar,
Yep.
Wendell Pierce for Death of a Salesman, Stephen McKinley Henderson between Riverside and Crazy, Marcel Spears for Fat Ham, and John David Washington for The Piano Lesson.
Oh boy.
Um, Probably wrong about several. What are you doing instead?
Oh boy. Okay, this I don't even want to talk about this category because if I watch this video back after Tuesday, I mean, I do feel
It'll
confident.
be embarrassing.
It will be embarrassing. Let's just say I feel confident about probably two of these, two to three. It's really the last slots that are giving me a lot
Who
of.
do you feel confident? You're probably confident about different ones than me.
No, I probably the same. I have Sean Hayes. I have Wendell Pierce. I have Stephen McKinley Henderson. I don't have, so this is the problem. I need to figure out what to do. I do not have Marcel Spears for Fat Ham, which I think is going to do well overall, nor do I have John David Washington. Let me just check and see what I have the latest. Okay, this is what I have. I have the two Top Dog Underdog actors in. I feel like that show, now listen, it closed a while ago, as did a lot of the revivals. As you said, that might be the least kind of divisive of the revivals. The two performers were absolutely raved about. The nominators see everything. It's only a year. Memory spans are not too short. So even though it closed, back in January, I think, these nominators are very savvy. And I can't really, it's a similar situation to Laura Linney and Jessica Hecht where, which one are they going to pick? I know there's maybe preference for one over the other, but it's such a two-hander that I just feel like they're both going to get in. That's at the detriment of predicting people who I know are likely to get nominated. And I just can't make the switch yet. And I don't know who I would drop and then who I would slot in.
Yeah, both of them were amazing in Top Dog. I feel like the two I have been debating putting in are Corey Hawkins from Top Dog Underdog
Yep.
and Haran Abe-Sakara from Life of Pi, who won the Olivier. There's precedent for Top Dog Underdog to only get one of its actors in because Jeffrey Wright for the original was the only one nominated. And Corey Hawkins has that role this time. So I think if there's one who does break in, it'll be him. The role is just a bit. I think it's also because he has like the really explosive ending, and what you're left with is that image of him. So there's a bit more weighted his way, I think. But it's hard. Like I know people really loved John David Washington feels like the one I would take out, but people really loved him, and I have him at 101 to odds. So I don't want to give up good odds if he's going to get in. But I just feel like Sean Hayes, when I saw Goodnight Oscar, leapt out to the front of the pack for me because it's such a like Tony or any awards catnip, that role. He's playing so against type. He gets to play the piano. He has like really distinct physicality. I don't hardly ever leaves the stage if he does at all. It's a stellar performance. Wendell Pierce also incredible. I mean, how are you when you're playing Willie Loman and you're that good of an actor? You're just gonna crush it. And then Stephen McKinley Henderson, I do feel pretty good about because he's just like such a denizen of New York theater, and people love him. And this role was created specifically for him in mind, and really brings up, I think, a lot of the qualities that people love about his acting. So I feel confident-ish in them, but not 100% because crazy things are probably going to happen in this category. Marcel Spears, I think, just feels like people love Fat Ham right now, and it's like it's peaking at the right time. So I feel like I can't take him out, but I want Haran or Corey Hawkins in there. Oscar Isaac got amazing reviews for Sidney Brewstein's Window. I haven't seen that, obviously. And then Jefferson Mays playing 50 characters in A Christmas Carol. I feel like Jefferson Mays in this, the reason I don't have him is because he's his own detriment, like because he's won for playing multiple characters before. He's like the king of that. So it's like if the lineup is this strong, people have to make really nitpicky small, base things off of very small choices. So maybe because he's won for that type of thing, he won't get in this time. But he was amazing in A Christmas Carol. There's very few people who could do that. I don't know, any final thoughts? Can we guide ourselves here towards some consensus? Because I don't know how.
Fair point about Top Dog Underdog that you made. So maybe I don't need to have both of them in. And that's, by the way, you mentioned Corey Hawkins. It's Yahya Abdul Mateen II is the other actor of the show. I didn't mention his name. Forgive me. You know, I don't know. I feel like, again, we can just keep our fingers crossed that we have some ties that makes it easier. And you know what? Not just for the sake of predictions. Let's just say it's going to be a shame if a lot of these individuals don't get Tony nominations, because in other years they would get Tony nominations and probably be win competitive. Like, that's how competitive the plays are this year. So no, I have no kind of final words on this category that are going to bring clarity. We will be changing them probably until Monday night when it closes.
I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
No.
I don't like it. Well, I can't think about this anymore, so let's move on. But where I'm going to move us to is not really much better. Featured actor in a play. I have been changing some of my mind about this category a lot recently. Actually, the only person I'm really confident in now is Brandon Uranowitz. He's the name I keep hearing over and over. At the start of the season, I thought maybe David Krumholtz was ahead of him, just because for a lot of Leopoldstadt, I think David Krumholtz's character feels the journey he's on, and the sort of rise and fall of that character feels a bit more central. But everyone is talking about Brandon, and I think it could actually be his year to win. I do have, after that, David Krumholtz from Leopoldstadt, Jordan E. Cooper, Ain't No Mo, Samuel L. Jackson for The Piano Lesson, and Chris Herbie Holland from Fat Ham. Those last two I could change in a heartbeat. It's interesting. Samuel L. Jackson, I think, started out the season as the front runner.
Yeah. But
Piano Lesson has several featured actors who are all really well liked and well reviewed. And in like other industry awards that have popped up in recent days, Ray Fisher was nominated at one, Michael Potts was nominated at one, Samuel L. Jackson has yet to show up in any of them. And I'm nervous that means there's not really a consensus of one featured actor from The Piano Lesson that everyone is going to unite around. So I'm debating taking Samuel L. Jackson out of my predictions. I'm sorry, Mr. Jackson, because there's so many actors who are in things very recently or still running, who don't have that type of internal competition, or who I feel like maybe do, but people are coalescing around one person. Like, I feel like Chris Herbie Holland has the most amazing monologue of the season about gingerbread men blowjobs, and I kid you not. And it's like, but also discovers like the meaning of life through that monologue. And Ariane Moayed from A Doll's House is amazing. And David Zayas from Cost of Living has popped up in a few places in nominations this season, so he shouldn't be counted out. And we have like like Andy Bertolucci from Sidney Brewstein's Window. It's like a new like thing just thrown into the race there at the end, so we don't know. And Greg Mazgala was very well liked in the off-Broadway version of Cost of Living, so along with David Zayas, they're both kind of threats, I think. What say you, sir?
I say I have a very different lineup again. I mean, not terribly different, but I have some different names. Do not feel confident about a lot of them. I still have Samuel L. Jackson. I see your rationale about why you might drop him. I feel like Joker, though, is such a standout and large part of The Piano Lesson that, you know, I'm going to leave him for now. I do have David and Brandon from Leopoldstadt. My last two, I'm much less confident about. I do have Ariane Moayed for Doll's House. I just feel like if it is going to get into revival, you know, his closing scene with Jessica Chastain, so well done. Such a unique take on Torvald that I feel like that's possible. The last one, depending on how Death of a Salesman does, I have Andre de Shield. And Andre de Shield's,
Really?
yeah, you know what? Ben, to me, is such an important character to Death of a Salesman. He's such an iconic actor. People absolutely adore him. It just feels to me like the kind of thing where even though there's other roles that are bigger. Now, here's the caveat I'll say on this. I don't have Fat Ham in nearly enough places as I should, because I know that that's going to be one of the plays that does really well across the board. So I have to make room for a lot of those performers. So Andre's probably the one that will fall out. That's the way I'm looking at it right now, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. I love Andre de Shields, and he very deservingly won a Tony for Hadestown. I don't. When we start our prediction center, I think well-known names immediately gravitate towards the top.
Yeah.
And I feel like he was up there. I don't see a path to nomination for him in this competitive of a field. I don't think that character, yes, he's important to the play and to Willie's arc in the play, but I don't know that there's enough there. Like comparing that character to like Torvald or Brandon's two characters in Leopoldstadt with that amazing final scene. I think people just have more juicy stuff to chew on than Andre does. Not that he did a bad job. He was great to see in that. But I don't know. There's such a wide, and you don't have Jordan E. Cooper either, do you?
No, Jordan is who I would want to put in. Jordan, Ain't No Mo, and Fat Ham are the two shows that I want to make more room for in my predictions, and I have not figured out where and how. So maybe as we talk about these categories, I'll realize who I should swap some folks out for. But those are the two shows that I feel like I need to make more space for. And as we talk about like featured actress and some of these other categories, again, need to find room for these performers. I just don't have it right now.
Well, I would say make room. I think that's kind of my thing about Ain't No Mo when I was discussing not having it in Best Play was like, maybe they won't, maybe Life of Pi will get into Best Play and he won't get in there, but they'll say like, I can give him a featured actor nomination, and that kind of takes care of Jordan with this play that we all liked. So I feel actually, I don't know, I feel even better about his acting nomination than I do for Ain't No Mo as a play, even though I want that to get in too.
Yeah.
Just because he's like I actually think I would classify him as the biggest scene stealer out of all of the people in this lineup.
Yeah.
He just he's like a funny, fabulous drag queen, but also gets really profound. The whole scene at the end with him like trying to pull Miss Bag, like all of the history and contributions into culture of Black people onto this plane, and then ends up de-dragged, like crying alone on stage. It's just such a powerful ending moment that I'm just like, if it was still running, I feel like he would be the front runner for the win. It's not still running, so that's why I don't have him winning. I think Brandon is going to win eventually, but I feel pretty good about two Leopoldstadt guys and Jordan. It's those last two where I'm really tempted to take out Samuel L. Jackson. I don't know if everyone's going to have him in there because he's famous, so we all put him in there.
Well,
it's a great role, but if something crazy happens, that's where it's going to happen.
Well, you know what? The nominators and the Tonys in general don't always go for those big names. Like to your point about Andre de Shield, I mean, he's a big theater name, so I feel like, that there's different credence to that. But, we've seen a lot of, big names get snubbed in these races. So it's not
Sigourney Weaver for
it's
Vanya Sonia in favor of a more theater person in Christine Nielsen. And I feel like Samuel L. Jackson's internal competition, his co-stars are more, like Michael Potts is a theater regular.
Love Michael Potts.
So I don't know. I'm starting to have doubts about
Mm.
people, about voters like coalescing around
Yeah,
one person from that show.
totally fair. I see that.
I can't debate it anymore because it's too, I'll talk myself in circles and talk myself out of good
Yeah.
predictions. So let's move to featured actress in a play.
Not that much easier, by the way.
No, well, I feel like there's a couple people who I feel pretty good at.
Yeah.
I think I still have Crystal Lucas Perry out at number one. I know I'm probably the only person who does, but if she doesn't get nominated, I'm gonna scream because that was, I think, one of the most intense, amazing performances I've ever seen. And along with her, I have Sharon D. Clarke and Danielle Brooks. I
Yep.
feel pretty secure in those three women, actually.
Hmm.
Um, I feel like for people who see the entire season of Broadway, those three really stand tall, stand out from
Mm.
the pack, I think. Then I have Katie Sullivan from Cost of Living, who also has like very strong, you know, internal competition from her co-star Carrie Young, who
Yeah.
was just a Tony nominee. But I think Katie Sullivan has really memorable moments in that and really
Mm.
powerful scenes. And then I'm filling out the category with Darcy Carden
Ah.
as my only nominee from the Thanksgiving play.
Mm.
And I could be wrong about this because she also has Katie Finner in there, who's also hysterical, and they also love Katie Finneran. She's a
Yeah.
two-time winner, is she? And people love her, and she's also hysterical. But Darcy was like just really stole the show, and she is so great on stage and has people howling. Um, those are my five.
Okay. You know what? Not bad. We're doing pretty good matching in this category, which is great. So I have four of your five. I have
Okay.
Sharon, I have Danielle, I have Katie, I have Crystal. My fifth is Faye Castello. I think
Mm-hmm.
based on the strength of the performance, the strength of the reviews for her, and the strength of the play, she's in my lineup. I did drop, funny, of the Thanksgiving play, I did just recently drop Katie Finneran, who I had, and I had it
I
100 to
did
1
too.
odds. So I hate clicking that little red button in our prediction center to drop those odds. But I think you raise a really good point about, the internal competition from that show. Are they going to favor one over the other? Darcy, for the reasons you're saying, could get in as well. So I don't have either of them now. I opted for Faye instead.
I had Faye Castello in. I had her in the very start, and I had her in there for a long time.
Yeah.
Um, I guess I just see as the season goes on some other people like overtaking her a little bit, even though I thought she was really great.
Yeah.
Um, that's why I dropped her. And I originally did have Katie Finneran, but I don't know. Seeing the Thanksgiving play, I feel like Darcy
Mm.
was the person who, even though all four actors are really hysterical
Yeah.
in an already funny cast, she like rose to the next level for me.
Yeah.
The other person we should really talk about is Miriam Silverman for The Sign in Sidney Brewstein's
Yeah.
Window,
Yeah.
which I've already said I don't think I'm going to get to see it unless I somehow scratch up a ticket tomorrow. I don't think I'm going to see it before nominations come out, but she has already gotten nominated for this for the off-Broadway run. She that character is a past winner. It's a scene-stealing character, and that's a place where this show that's swooping in with only two previews and then opening at the
Wild.
very end of the season, this is a definite place where she could take out someone we perceive to be
Hmm.
safe here.
Totally.
I really wish I could see it to have a better beat on that, but I have a strong feeling she's going to be the nomination that I'm not suspecting that takes out one of these women who I feel pretty secure about.
Yeah. So some of our experts are predicting her. So I feel like there is a rising tide. And that show, I think, will do fairly well. Like, I don't have Oscar Isaac in Best Actor, as we talked about, that absolute head scratcher of a category, but I do feel like
Yeah,
it could get into a few of these other categories.
yeah. And one person I would like to just throw a shout out to is the person who is she is at the bottom of our odds for this, but Nancy Zamet from Peter Pan Goes Wrong
Uh,
is just unbelievably funny. in that. And watching her do her like crazy dance as Tinkerbell is one of the highlights of the season. So I don't know. Some people go predict her because she should definitely not be last in the odds. She's amazing in that show. Uh, Let us then move on to director of a play.
Mm,
This one is hard.
very.
This one I've changed a bit. Right now I have Leopoldstadt, Life of Pi, Fat Ham, Top Dog, Underdog, and The Piano Lesson. And that seems crazy to me because I took out Christmas Carol, Michael Arden's second
Mm,
production. I don't have A Doll's House or Death of a Salesman, which all seem like the very like ones that have an obvious directorial concept driving the show. So that doesn't make me feel safe. What is your lineup?
pretty close to yours. So okay, not a bad match here either. I have Leopoldstadt, Life of Pi, The Piano Lesson, Top Dog, Underdog. If I'm going,
Mhm.
really hard on that on Best Actor, I feel like Kenny Leon is going to get in. Um, and I have Doll's House. Now, here's so two things to say. Again, I need to get Fat Ham into this lineup. My predictions for Fat Ham are totally underweighted. So don't listen to me about predicting Fat Ham. Take some of my picks out and put Fat Ham in some of them, as I will by Tuesday. I feel like Doll's House, again, potentially divisive production in terms of the directorial vision, but we've seen with Betrayal it get into revival and Jamie Lloyd. I want to caveat that I'm pretty sure that was the pandemic year of the Tonys. So is that skewing my judgment? Perhaps. But I just feel like, as you were saying in our musical Slugfest, go watch that as soon as you're finished with this one. The kind of directorial vision when there is a kind of really clear concept fully realized on stage, that draws a lot of attention. And I feel like Jamie Lloyd brings that. And for the people, it doesn't take many people in this pool of nominators to really like or love a production to get in. So I feel like Jamie Lloyd could get in.
Yeah, that's what's so it's just like about 40-ish people
Mm-hmm.
that are deciding this. So it's really hard to know, their taste may not align with the mass audience tastes. Because you make a lot of good points about A Doll's House. I've just been like, I know A Christmas Carol isn't going to get into
Mm,
Best Play because it's, you know, such a competitive year and they used all of Dickens' words to create that play. So I don't think they're going to put that in, but it definitely is going to get in everywhere in the design categories.
mm,
Maybe not costume design because there's just one or two costumes, but it's such an impressive production, and I
yeah.
can't imagine trying to be at the helm of that production and wrangle all those things together while also making it very clear who your lead actor is at any given moment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's really impressive to me, and the fact that Michael Arden also has Parade, like I can definitely see them just like checking his name off for two because he had such a great season. Um, so that's the one I'm having trouble with. And A Doll's House, you're right about that. I also know a lot of people who appreciate Prima Facie's
Mm-hmm.
direction because it is. I don't know how I don't know if we talked a lot about Jodie Comer's performance when we discussed lead actors, but it is um, the complete opposite of Jessica Chastain. They're two.
True.
Jessica Chastain is
True.
doing all of her stuff stationary in a chair, and then Jodie Comer is light speed, never stops talking, never stops moving. I don't know how she memorized all of that as an actress, but it's very impressive, and it's beyond just impressive from an acting feat. Every piece of that is also super clear as to where it's going and how it is paced. Because even though the script never stops, you do still have really clear beats in the production, and that is something that could be in favor of a directing nomination here. Um, and I think again, this is like making me second guess my revival
Mm,
uh stuff because if I took one out to put one of those plays I just mentioned in, I think it would be Piano Lesson.
mm,
Because I feel good about Leopoldstadt. I feel good about Life of Pi. And even Fat Ham, I think the tone of that is such a
Yeah.
tricky thing to pull off. And it's having a lot of popularity at the right moment that I think that's pretty safe. Um, so I feel like Piano Lesson might be the one that gets the boot if I do boot
Mm.
something, but I don't know. I don't know if I have the guts to do it.
I would probably boot Doll's House for Fat Ham. That is the switch I'm contemplating making. Why am I so confident about the Piano Lesson? I'm not. I'm not. I'm not. But I feel like that is probably a less polarizing directorial vision than Doll's House. So that's probably the switch I'm going to make.
I'm gonna go watch Sound of Music. I have confidence. That's what we need to do before our predictions. It's a really crazy time out here in the play categories. So I don't know what to sum that up with other than take a look at the potential nominees, say a little prayer, get some good jujus in your life, candles, crystals, whatever you can call on some higher power to help you with predictions. This is a very unpredictable year, which is good for us theater goers because there's a lot of amazing plays out there, but really difficult when it comes to actually deciding what's going to make the cut for the Tonys. So go on to your account, Gold Derby, log in those predictions before nominees are announced on May 2nd. See if you can do better than David and I can. Thanks so much, David.
Thanks, Sam.